So I just want to say a big thank you for coming on today. It's a really exciting one for me. To me, you're known as Yeye for, I mean, my entire lifetime. But
Yes.
to everyone else, you're known as RJ Benjamin, one of South Africa's most influential musicians, artists, vocal coaches, musical directors. I mean, you have so many labels next to your name. So I just want to say a big thank you, and it's a big honor and privilege to be chatting.
Pleasure, man. It's a pleasure.
So you've been kind of into music your whole life. What was the point where you came to like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? This is what I want to do.
I think subconsciously it was very early on. I think I probably started figuring out that I had some kind of talent when I was around 5 years old, 5, 6.
Okay. That's mad because I mean, like, at least you knew what you wanted to do from day one, and you kind of just
Close to, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was very organic initially. So I started. The thing that influenced me musically was not like, well, it probably was nursery rhymes. We all grow up with Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and all the rest. But it was cartoons. Like, I think you know this about me. I'm obsessed with like comic books and superheroes and all of that. You know that.
Yeah,
I think I
course.
took you to the first Avengers movie or something. So, but it was those things. Back in my day, there was a cartoon called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and I was obsessed with that cartoon. But a big part of it was just playing with the toys, action figures, and I used to make my own little toys. I mean, your mom will remember this. I literally would like buy or steal press stick from everyone in the house to make these little like figures, my own figurines, and I'd give them their own names. And with that, of course, whoever those characters were needed a theme song. The same as whatever you're watching, Adventure Time or regular show or whatever the show is, Ben 10. Ben 10's got the coolest theme song ever. I mean, it's a classic. It's that kind of thing. And He-Man and the Master of the Universe had a theme song. And all of the cartoons we had, I think Transformers was big in, when I was growing up. And so in my head, I started making up my own little theme songs for these characters. And that's really where it started. And then from there, your mom was obsessed with Michael Jackson.
yes.
Okay.
I do know this. I know the story about you drawing the moustache on the.
I actually feel bad about it. I mean, I was just wrong. I think I tore pages in like a poster book that she had. I was a naughty little bugger. Anyway.
I mean, let's be honest. We've all done it to our siblings, Just
No, true.
that kind of thing where you just mess with them. I did it to my sister's Justin Bieber poster. I remember, just like drawing that like moustache. Never been angrier.
Oh my word! And look, I mean, at least you can kind of reminisce about these things, and for some reason they land up being good memories.
Of course, yeah.
As much as I regret having ripped up the thing, at least I've got the memory now. So
Yeah, of course.
but like that Michael Jackson influence that your mom had, like, was a big influence on me. So I found that I started not making up these theme songs for these little comic book characters, and cartoon characters that I was creating. But I started actually writing songs that sounded closer to a Michael Jackson or a Lionel Richie, and then I just completely invaded my dad's record collection. In those days, how it would work is, your parents would have like a bunch of vinyls. What they had is what they had. There was no access to everything like we have now. So whatever my dad had in his record collection is what it was. Of course, as a 8-year-old kid or whatever it was, you can't just like go and dig in and then put it on the record player because your parents going to kill you. But I still did. I would. Because you don't want to scratch the vinyl, and there's this whole thing. You have to hold it like this and put it on the thing. If you hold it with your fingers and you leave a fingerprint on the vinyl, it was a whole different time, man. But like you could damage the needle that you stick on the vinyl, which is spinning around. And I definitely damaged some stuff. I damaged an Aha thing. It's a band.
Gotcha.
They had a really cool music video in the 80s
Okay.
of your mom's as well. But she doesn't seem to remember that, so that's fine. We'll just keep it between us. But until she watches this. But that's how I got into more music that was similar to Michael Jackson,
Okay.
So maybe I was sick and I was staying at home. My dad was at work. My mom was at work. I was digging into all these records, and that was my musical education. And so like, it was around that time that I was like, I started writing songs, actual songs.
Okay.
And subliminally, I was like, I was collecting each song. So I'd make up a song, and it's almost like I would put it in a folder in my brain. And it just started building and building and building. And by the time I was maybe 13, I probably had 100 songs. And what I would do is I'd be sitting in I have a bath at night, and I would sing in the bath. But what I was actually doing is I was seeing if I could remember all of the songs that I.
Okay.
And that's why I say to you, I think I knew that it wanted to be music, but I never said like, I definitely am going to be a musician, or I definitely. I didn't verbalize it. It was just like, at that point I was like, I think I'm good at this, and then I'm sorry to harp on, but I definitely, going back to the superhero thing, it was very secret for me. No one knew that I could sing, that I was making up songs, that I could create music. None of it. No one knew. I assumed that your mom knew, our parents knew, because they heard me making noise in the bath or singing in the garden. I would often go outside and just open my mouth, and whatever came out, I'd start creating a song out of it. But generally it was a secret. So I kind of started to do this thing where I looked at this musical talent that I had as like my secret superhero identity. So if I was like Clark Kent, this musical gift that I had was Superman.
Okay. So I mean, like, that's kind of what it is. You get on the stage, and now you in the spotlight. You are essentially the superhero. You play a one in your game. That's exactly what it is.
Sometimes you're not, but if it's a bad gig. But yeah, no, more often than not, when you're on that stage, that's how you feel.
Yeah. So I've been doing obviously a little bit of research, and I saw that before your album, The Fifth Story, you were kind of labeled as a house artist. Kind of stuff like that, and you released that album to kind of get away from that kind of label that you've given, that you're a house artist. Why is it so important for you to make sure that everyone knows how versatile you actually are?
Well, I think it's because predating the house music for me, I'm very close to 20 years. I'm getting so old now. But, like in the early 2000s, about 2003, 2004, I released music as what I suppose you could say like a soul R&B artist, jazzy influence. And I released 2 albums of that kind of material. And I had built an audience up with that music. But what I'd also done is, I was producing all of that stuff. I was writing all of it. And so when those albums went out, it wasn't just about playing on the radio and doing gigs as a solo artist. Because I produced and wrote almost everything on those first 2 albums, those albums serve as like a CV to other artists and musicians who basically hear that stuff and go, wow, this guy, I love the way he produces music. Or I love the way he writes. I want him to write a song for me. And so those albums opened up a whole can of worms, far beyond just being a solo artist. So I started producing music for a lot of other artists. I started writing songs for other artists. And all of that expands, I suppose, your business, so to speak. If I'm looking at myself as a business, I now don't have this one dimension of just being an artist. I've now created more avenues, including also still being a teacher. So that's really where suddenly songwriter, producer, blah, blah, blah came from. The house thing was almost like an accident. It's perfectly normal that you start featuring on other people's music when you're a new artist.
Yeah.
Because all of producers, and it still happens to this day, Black Coffee is looking for the new hot vocalist to feature on his song. So he's gonna get Shekinah, or because she's the new hot thing. Let's do a collab. We'll release a song.
Yeah.
So back in my day, it started with hip hop. Hip hop was starting to blow up. This predates AKA. There was a group called Squatter Camp.
Okay.
They were massive at the time. I think they still have the biggest selling hip hop album of all time. And they kind of felt like an army of guys, just like making noise on the stage, but
Okay.
like such a cool vibe, like
Okay.
very big energy, and it was guys like that I was hanging around because of the studio where I was recording, the studio called
Okay.
Jazzworks. It was them. You may know, or people listening may have heard of a guy who he now calls himself Stogie T, I think, but he used to be called Tumi, Tumi
Yes.
from The Volume.
Okay.
Tumi and The Volume was the name of this hip hop group, and they were basically a band, like a live band with this rapper. Tumi is the best rapper hands down in South Africa, and if your listeners don't know who he is, or Stogie T, it's worth going to listen and see what he's done and achieved internationally. It's just the best. Lyrically, he's just the guy. So all of these guys heard me in the other studio or heard my albums and said, "Please sing on my song," and that's where it started.
Okay.
And then what came from that is house music started blowing up. Mid 2000s. All of a sudden, DJ Fresh
Yeah.
was the guy.
Yeah.
He had a protege, a guy named DJ Cleo, who is still massive in the urban market. Okay, and Cleo used to produce his DJ Fresh's radio show at YFM.
Okay.
This was like the glory days of YFM. And Cleo and I studied together. So when I was studying music, he was studying sound engineering. And we built this like relationship. So next thing, Cleo asked me to sing on some of his songs. And guys heard that. And then guys were like, "Can you sing on my house song?" Because they were like, "Well, okay, he doesn't just sing on hip hop or his own stuff. He can sing on my song." But that's just a feature. And that's really the house thing kind of blew up unintentionally because I featured on a song. I actually thought it was a terrible song. I really did. I thought it was a crap song. I recorded it on the day or a few days after I essentially bust an ex-girlfriend with another guy at my house. I don't know if you remember
Yes,
that story.
I remember this story. I remember this story.
I was booked to do the session.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go. I didn't want to do the session. I was miserable because I was feeling sorry for myself. Woe is me. But bottom line is you have to be a professional. Booked for the session. I went to the session. I wrote the song. I was miserable. I probably did like one take. Usually in a studio, in this day and age, you can do as many takes as you want until it's perfect. So no one has an excuse to have a crap sounding song out there, quite honestly. But I wasn't into it. I was like, it's fine. This vocal's fine. Whatever. This song's going to go nowhere. I may have said it out aloud, but I definitely thought it. And then I left the studio. And then like a year later, the song just absolutely blew up. And it was so big that it just completely overshadowed all this other material that I had done before. The problem is, what I had set up for myself was a niche market. Fine, not mass market. So I wasn't going to get 1 million views on YouTube. I was going to get 100,000 if I'm lucky. But they're loyal and they're at every single gig. Wherever I perform, I know they're going to be. They're coming to watch my band. They want to hear the songwriting, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But like they're loyal. They'll buy anything and everything. They respect like the details and all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden I'm doing this house music stuff and the song blows up. I was making more money. I was doing probably 3 to 4 gigs. The weekends usually work like this. It's Thursday night because with that whole Puza Thursday thing. I don't know if that's still a thing, but it was then. So Thursday night you start. Friday night, Saturday night. You can probably do 3 gigs a night. They only really want to hear the big songs.
Sorry, 3 gigs a night.
Yes. You just drive around.
So you hop from like bar to bar.
That's what DJs
like
still do. DJs make so much money, man. So I was suddenly in this thing where all I had to do was ultimately the massive song, which was this big song in the urban market. But you can't just go and sing one song. So you're like, okay, I'll do 20 minutes or 30, at a stretch. I had other house songs that were popular, but you save the best for last. You save the hit for last.
Of course.
And then you can charge, man. You can charge. I mean, I was probably charging 20 to 40,000 rand a gig. You do the math.
Yeah.
And this went on probably for about 2 years.
Okay.
And sometimes you can do performances on a Sunday afternoon at a Chisanyama.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. It's just people chilling, but you go there as like a guest vocalist and do a couple of songs or whatever. So I was making money. I mean, it was amazing. But at the same time, I completely neglected the audience that I spent about 7, 8 years building with my original material. Also, I had no more audio CVs. I had no new material where guys were going, I want you to write that for me, unless it was house music. The house music was so big that all anyone wanted me to do was write house music.
Okay.
And I was like, but I do other stuff. Because for me, it's all about the long game.
Yeah.
In the music industry. You could be massive. You could be a massive star. And that's great. But it usually won't last forever. It's just not going to.
I mean, it's like those one-hit wonder guys. You know, they put out one song, they massive. 6 months later, no one knows their name. That type of thing.
Absolutely. And even if you have 10 good years, if you want music to be a career, you still have to go beyond that 10 years.
Exactly.
What are you going to be doing when you're 55? So, and the reality is, generally the music that's playing on radio is the music that 18 to 25-year-olds, maybe 30, are really into.
Yeah.
By 30, it's kind of waning already. They're like, bring up the family, whatever. I don't really care who the new young hot person is. But, at some point, you're going to lose your hair. You're going to go gray. It's going to happen. Yeah. And then an 18-year-old's going, why do I care about this bald gray guy? So, like at the end of the day, you have to look at a long game. Now, for me, if you're only doing one genre of music or one aspect of being in the music industry, when that star or starts to fade, or you start getting older and people lose interest, it just happens. What other stuff do you have? Now, if I have multiple genres that I know I'm capable of performing in, that gives me more longevity.
Well, it's not even the performing, it's also just the understanding, because I mean, you have such an understanding of so many genres. That's why you can be the musical director of a show like Idols, or
100%,
that choir show that you're on. You can understand a whole lot of musicians. And I wanted to ask you, talking about like the teaching, you've coached so many people. I mean, I even know someone who messaged me the other day. I was telling them that you're coming on the podcast, and they were like, oh my word, he actually coached me.
Oh, cool.
So, but that teaching, how important do you think that's been for your longevity in your career? And is that the part you're most passionate about? Like, what is the part that you actually enjoy the most?
Changes. I often get asked that question. So like before I got here, I was standing somewhere, maybe in the kitchen. I was making, I don't know, noodles or whatever. Yeah. But I was thinking, okay, it's probably going to ask that. What is the most passionate thing? And it's usually it's usually whatever I'm focused on right at the moment. But teaching, the reason I still have a career in music almost 20 years later is because of teaching.
Okay.
And it was completely accidental. So when I was studying, we had a course. It was a very rigorous course, teaching course. Yeah. I hated it. I disagreed with the way that they were teaching us to teach. I was like, this is nonsense. You can't just teach everyone the same thing. There's different voices and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I was I was a little bit smug, not going to lie. Okay. And I actually got to the point where I dropped out of that subject. Okay. Because I was told that I can still actually get my, it wasn't a degree yet, it was a higher diploma. I can still get my higher diploma. Okay, cool. So then, why do I need to do this stupid shit? I don't want to teach anyone. I'm going to be a songwriter or a music producer. Maybe I'll be a singer.
Just be famous.
That's what you need. I'm going to be famous, whatever. Teaching, schmeeching, whatever. So I dropped out of that. Now, what I didn't realize is my mentor or lecturer at the time actually felt like I had the most potential out of anyone in our class to be a legitimate teacher, vocal coach, music lecturer. Specifically because I was the one in the class that was always mentoring the other students. I was the one coaching people on how to play a certain part of a song or how to learn some kind of musical thing or vocal thing, teaching people how to harmonize, all these things. And so after about 3 months of not doing this class at all, she pulled me aside towards the end of that year and she said, listen, I think you're making a huge mistake. I think you will make a great teacher, and I do think you have some legitimate points about why you don't think that it'll work, and I think you've got some innovative ideas, which I'd like to collaborate on, but we can't do any of that unless you qualify.
Okay.
And she made me a deal. She said, I think you're that good that if you are willing to finish this course and qualify, I will give you a job as a teacher.
Oh, wow.
As a junior lecturer, essentially. So now I thought to myself, okay, my mom and my whole family think this was a terrible mistake. My mother used to elbow me under the dinner table when we used to go to Shabbos dinner somewhere.
Yeah.
When people would say, what are you studying? I'd be like, music. And she'd be like, bah! Because apparently I was studying business. Because there was like 2 subjects that was like public relations or market. It wasn't business. But anyway.
Yeah.
I understand where she was coming from.
Yeah.
It's a risky business. There's no doubt about it. Statistically speaking, I can't think of a worse thing to do than music besides, I don't know, acting or art, paint. I don't know, something like that. It's risky. So she gave me that in, and I thought, it's work. It's a job. It would be my first job in the music industry. Let me just take it. Because most guys graduate from studying music, and this is the problem. Most guys graduate, and they sit at home for a year doing nothing, and they land up going to study some other kind of course. Might be business, maybe they get into real estate, who knows, and they land up never doing music again. And so I thought, this is my opportunity. I can literally graduate and already have a job.
Yeah.
So I got into teaching. And that job opened me up to every single other avenue. A student who came for a lesson, way back in the day, South Africa had their own version of Big Brother.
Yeah.
It was mad and it was weird, and a guy named Ferdy won. You must Google that. It's ridiculous, but he defecated in a garden or something. So anyway, there was a guy on the show who kind of looked like this rock musician named Lenny Kravitz. His name on the show was Swerve or Irvin. And Irvin, because he was so cool on Big Brother, decided, no, I don't know if he decided, but someone decided, his team, that he was going to release music. He was going to be a muser, even though he wasn't an out-and-out musician. And so he came for me for some vocal coaching. He brought a guy with him.
Wow.
who happened to listen to some of my music and thought it was good. That guy funded me to record a demo at Jazzworks. Jazzworks is the place where I met all these hip-hop guys.
Yeah.
The hip-hop guys, featuring on the hip-hop guys stuff got me to feature on all the house music, blah, 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 blah. Recording at Jazzworks, I started to produce music for Jazzworks. In fact, I essentially became an employer of Jazzworks part-time, producing music for them. I still go to Jazzworks to this day, and we're talking close to 18 years. I still go there and mentor their upcoming artists, still to this day.
Yeah.
That session at Jazzworks, that demo, was a 3-song demo that this guy who I met at a singing lesson, that demo got me my first record deal as an artist. Recording that album was this soul music that I recorded, which ultimately was an audio CV, which suddenly marketed me as a producer and a songwriter. So all I'm saying is, none of that would have happened if it wasn't for teaching. Weird, but that's the way it happened.
And that woman that was just like, take the course. Like, you have to finish.
Dude.
Give you that job.
I mean, I'm sure you know this, but like mentorship or mentors, having someone like that in your life is so important, man.
Yeah, of course.
It really is.
Of course, it's also just someone to guide you, you know, someone to give you that, listen, you will be okay, do this. It may not be as fun now, but later on you'll be thanking me. And that's kind of where you are now, where you're like, I have an unbelievable career, but thanks to this lady, she was like, come do this, and you did it, you know. It's cool. It's also amazing that you listened to her, that you were just like, you know, the pros are better, the pros outweigh the cons here, I might as well just stick it out.
I mean, it might have been the Jewish thing of like, I need some money.
I mean, I don't think that's a Jewish thing. I mean, it's just like, you just need money. Everyone needs money.
No, that's true. You know, you want to start earning some money and, you know, paying away, especially as an adult. You kind of want to, you know, you want your parents to kind of see that this is going to pay off, you know. Yeah.
It's also like a reward to them.
True.
So your dad, who was my grandfather, I only knew him for 2 years of my life, close to 2 years of my life. For all the guys listening, he committed suicide. Obviously a very tragic event in both of our lives, but for you, he was your father, and he was you were older, you had a more, obviously you had the understanding of what was going on. How did you find the motivation to carry on doing music and not just to like stop? Because death is something that some people just like, it can put you in a rut where it's like you don't really, getting out of bed every morning is extremely difficult, you know. Finding the motivation to do any small thing is very difficult, you know. So I just wanted to get your, because you're very successful and you've been through a lot in your life. So I just wanted to get some of your guidance on how you dealt with that situation.
And I mean, that's interesting because your mom and I probably dealt with it in very different ways.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any one right way.
Yeah.
You know, so because we all deal with things differently, and you don't quite know how you're going to deal with it until it happens to you.
Yeah.
I think because in the situation with my dad, I'll admit this all the time, and it's no disrespect to my mom, because like my mom loved some amazing artists herself.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that created quite a strong bond between my mom and my dad.
Yeah.
There were lots of artists that they loved listening to together.
Yeah.
But my dad definitely sort of wins the prize as the person who really influenced me the most, probably besides your mom and Michael Jackson. But you know, my dad was probably the champion in terms of that, and giving me my absolute obsession / love for music. That just never wanes, never dies. He was so proud of me, musically speaking. I remember I used to do this thing. We had this upright piano at home, and I played so much, especially when I was studying music. But for some reason, I would always I'd come up with ideas, and then I'd have like 3 different options, and then I'd call my mom or my dad. I can't remember if I ever called your mom. She might have already been with your dad, so she wasn't around. But I definitely called them into the room, and I would have been like, Dad, which one of these sound better? And I'm like, you know, option A, option B, option C, and then he'd sit there, B or whatever, you know. And there was a genuine like. He was proud. He was proud, man, and I could see that it was tangible even. Towards the end, I knew he was proud.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this story, but I'll tell you the story. It's a cool story.
Okay.
So he had already attempted suicide.
Okay.
I don't know how many times, but he had already attempted it, and this was close to the end. And there was an album that we used to listen to growing up. It was a James Taylor album. Ask your mom who James Taylor is. He's very folky and old, like way before even I was born. James Taylor was a thing. But there was a James Taylor album that came out that my dad had a cassette tape with, because you put the cassette tape in the car and that's what you listened to. The album was called Never Die Young. Crazy title, but there was a song on there about ducks all being in a row, and as a kid I loved that song. So, Daddy, play the ducks in a row song. Ducks in a row. The first line of the song goes, in line, it's all in line, my ducks are all in a row. That's why I called the Ducks in a Row song. Anyway, never forgot about that whole album, loved it, and it very much reminded me of my dad, because I used to tell him to play that album in the car. And then you could not find that album. And again, there's no streaming, there's no YouTube, there's no Google. We're talking like early 2000s. There's nothing. So if you're going to have something, you need it on a CD at that stage. Cassette tapes were kind of irrelevant. So everything was CDs. You had to go to a Musica or CD Warehouse, I think was the other big place. Okay. Something like that. But you could never find the CD. It just wasn't, it was nowhere in sight. And one day I happened to be at like Musica Santon or whatever. And I found the album. And I was so excited. Oh, wow. I couldn't believe it. And what did I do? I drove straight to my parents' place. Yeah. And understand at this point there was a lot of tension. Yeah. Tension and all of that. I did not care. I went straight to my parents' place. My dad was standing in the kitchen. Can't remember what he was doing. Maybe he was making food or eggs or whatever. I had a CD Walkman, and I said, "Look what I found." And I played it, and I put it in the CD Walkman, put the headphones over his head. and very clearly remember, I can't remember if he was facing me or he was standing there. I think I was watching his back, but he was just, he was enjoying the music of this album. That was like a special bond for us. So I think the reason why like those kind of stories are important to me is that's how important music and my dad are. They're almost inseparable. So for example, if you were to say to me, what's my favorite genre of music? It's all of the music that my dad brought me up on. And I think the reason why I always go back to that music. It's the music your mom grew up on. I know she's probably annoyed you with some of those old songs.
Of course. I mean, the B.B. King track's just unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely.
So it's like still to this day, it's one of my favorite songs.
100%. Like the Van Morrison album. All that stuff, man. I go back to that every year. It's just, it's relentless. And I think the reason why is music was so important to my dad. It's so important to me. And I feel like I'm connected to my dad when I listen to that music. It's like we're in the room together.
Yeah.
And maybe even I'm just thinking out aloud now. This is nothing I've ever said before. But maybe that's the reason why I couldn't do house music.
Okay.
I used to get annoyed when people used to call me a house singer.
Okay.
But I think maybe part of it is because that doesn't bring me closer to my dad.
Yeah, of course.
And that's such an important part of my life is being connected to him. So creating music that feels like the music that he loved.
So that's the amazing thing about music is, I mean, you listen to a song that came out, I don't know, that you listen to with a certain person, your mind goes straight to a single memory or something like that. That just, it brings you closer to that person. So I completely understand when you say that house music doesn't fully represent who you want to be because it doesn't bring you closer to your father.
Yeah.
So I mean, I completely understand that. Like the memories and stuff that music gives you, it's a very nostalgic feeling listening to a song that you had with someone close to you, and then it comes on and instantly your mind goes straight there, So it's a very weird thing to think about, that music is just that thing, but it is, and it's there.
And there's nothing like it, man. It's I don't care what genre you love, what music you listen to. It's irrelevant, really. But I think you could almost say for every single human being on earth, the one common denominator is that people love music.
Yeah.
I'm not saying all music, but generally like a blanket statement that someone could say is, I love music.
There will be a piece of music that someone loves.
Absolutely.
Any person.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, that's what music is,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Which is why, opinions don't really matter with music. You'll find something that you love. And what's cool about this day and age is that you can find a playlist that you love, whatever, whether it's Spotify or Apple Music or Deezer, you find your genre, your sound, and you can, and then that opens you up. They'll be like, oh, so you like AKA, well, have you heard Nasty C, or have you heard, whoever, Majosi, or what's her name? Sure, Majosi,
Yeah, I got you. Is there any upcoming music that we can get excited about on your side? What's next for RJ Benjamin?
Yeah, look, I mean, I was so upset with the whole house music thing. I mean, that I literally stopped all of those gigs. I started to tell all those bookers, and it's a while back now. We're in 2021. This is 2010.
Yeah.
I basically had rules. I eventually said, I'm not doing the gig unless you book me in my 10-piece band or something like that. Now, why is a club gonna, playing like CDs or backtracks or whatever, gonna book a band? They're not. So then I stopped getting all those gigs. I did it on purpose. I wanted to perform to my band.
Yeah.
So that all kind of dried up, and then I had to kind of reinvent. So I'm kind of at a point now where I don't really care, So if I hear a piece of music that I like, I'm gonna sing on it,
Okay.
So I kind of lifted my own embargo or self-sabotaging whatever I did to myself, But I had my reasons. There's tons of music. Look, lockdown for a lot of artists. Kind of put a pause button on a lot of releases because artists now like this had to suddenly go like, so how's this going to work? How do I release this? Because I can't.
There's no gigs.
There's no gigs. Is the streaming thing is are live performances, live streamed performances viable? We quickly realized that it wasn't. I mean, hardly anyone does that anymore. There's a few little events that happen, but you might be making your fans happy if they want to watch a live performance, but it's ultimately, there's something about, performing with a live audience. It's just the best feeling ever, especially when, I don't know, they start singing your song back to you, or I'm a moron and a clown on stage. One day you have to come watch. I'm a bit of an idiot, but sometimes like my little jokes like crack a laugh here or there. That's a great feeling. But it's cool to have that energy and that synergy between an actual audience. So I can't wait until we get back there. So I got a ton of music sort of
just like lingering around,
and it's just about finding a model that is going to bring you a return on investment. I mean, like, to earn money from streaming, like good money, is close to impossible unless you're like getting 1 million streams. So as South African artists, we're probably going to get, if we're lucky, 50 to 100,000 streams of a song. There are the big artists. Black Coffee is probably right up there. He's probably the highest.
But he's not just a South African artist. I mean, he's working with some really like big artists overseas.
There's really maybe 4 artists in South Africa who are at that level. But the guys who are staying local, it's very hard for them to crack 1 million streams. Now, per stream at the moment, if I'm talking, for example, Spotify, you get paid in like 0.005 cents dollars per stream. And you do the math, and it's not good numbers. It's not the kind of numbers that you want. Alternatively, or at the same time, if you can get your song blazing on South African radio, just in South Africa, you can make some good money. A big hit in this country could earn you $1 million in royalties. Mikasa, Jigga probably earned them $1 million, maybe 2 or 3.
That song was played non-stop
everywhere, and on not just on white radio, but on black radio, you name it. It was playing on probably Lotus FM as well. So
it was a universal track.
It was a crossover track. So if you can get something like that, that's absolute gold. So radio still is very powerful in South Africa in terms of earning royalties. And so that side of it's great. But the problem is, because of lockdown, usually how the formula would work is you would go into radio, do an interview face-to-face, do a promo. That always wins over whatever the station that you go to, because you made your presence known, or you do a special live performance for them. We can't do that anymore.
It creates a relationship. Like, it's the same thing here with the guys that I've done the podcast with before. You leave with a certain like heightened feeling of like, I got to know this person. It was a very face to face, and over in front of a computer is just so different. You know what I mean?
Completely, absolutely, man.
So like, I like now with the podcasts, I feel it's so important for me, because what I really want to do is establish connections and learn. I want to learn about people and use my experiences that I've had maybe to share some light on my situation and receive on others, because everyone's been through a lot, like everyone has their own story in life and how they overcame it. And I feel like for me, it's super important to have that face-to-face connection where it's more real, Right. So I completely get why the radio wants to have people like there, and then you can perform there. It's also, it's real, it's authentic. It's that authentic feeling.
Yeah, obviously it's hard now to have in person anything, but hopefully we can get back there soon. And look, I think the hardest thing about living at this point in time is the fact that, like, when you grieve, you often have to grieve alone, or there's just like a few people there, and so. But I will say this: having watched your first 2 podcasts, you're getting better at this.
Thank you. I really appreciate
the conversation is getting there, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's obviously a long game. Like, it comes with experience, but I'm enjoying them. That I think for me, that's the most important part. I'm not earning anything from them. It's more just about enjoyment. And if I get to help someone, that's amazing. That's great. But I'm learning a lot from them. I've spoken to some amazing people, including yourself. So it's cool. I've learned a lot, you know.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, it's just a really, really good experience. So to finish off,
Yep.
I just want to say a massive, massive, massive thank you. You've been amazing throughout this whole process. I can't thank you enough. I want to congratulate you on all your success. I don't know if I've done it before, but I'm going to do it now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And good luck on all your future endeavors. We'll definitely be listening out for RJ Benjamin.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, dude. And likewise to you, man.
Thank you.
I know you're still in the middle of studying
Yeah.
and killing it as far as I understand. So well done.
Thank you.
And yeah, best of luck with the podcast, dude.
Thank you so much.
Cool, bro.